Hello. Can you think of a time when you have been made to feel particularly welcome? When I think about welcome, 3 situations come to my mind. The first was when I went to Malawi to give some training to churches on supporting bereaved children and families. While I was there, I visited a family of 5 orphans, where the eldest 2, who were 17 and 14, were essentially taking care of the rest of the family. They earned what money they could, and they'd bought 7 bottles of fizzy drink for my visit. It had cost them quite a lot of what they actually had to live on, and they insisted that I had the first choice as their guest. I felt really humbled and uncomfortable, if I'm honest, by their generosity and welcome. The second time was when Mike and I were invited to the reception of a wedding that I had taken. When it was time for the meal, we looked at the seating plan, starting at the bottom, assuming that we were going to be sat at the back somewhere. And we worked our way up through the names and discovered that we were actually sat at the top table. Again, I felt a little bit uncomfortable initially, but we were made to feel so welcome. Certainly not an afterthought, or that we'd been invited because it was the done thing to invite the vicar. And we had a really wonderful time. And finally, next week, I'm going on a course. Having Crohn's disease means that there are various foods that I can't eat, so catering for me is a little bit complicated. Sometimes when I go away, I feel like I'm being a real nuisance when I ask if I can eat what I'm being served. But last week I got a call from the catering manager wanting to go through the menu with me to check that what they were planning would not only tick the boxes of what I could eat, but that I would enjoy eating it as well. I haven't even left for the course yet, and I already feel very welcome. Maybe when I asked you about feeling welcome, what came to mind was actually a time when you'd been made to feel unwelcome. Because that's sadly often what people experience. I won't share any stories of that, but I certainly have them, and I imagine that most of us do as well. Welcome makes such a big difference. A good welcome makes someone feel valued, cared for, and worthwhile. A poor welcome makes someone feel unwanted, excluded, or rejected. Our gospel reading today is a really short one, but it's got some quite deep stuff in it. Jesus is talking to his disciples, who he is sending out to tell people about God. He tells them that as they go around the communities, those who welcome them are essentially welcoming God. He has already warned them in the passage that we had last week that they will meet with opposition. There will be people against them. But here he assures them that there will be warm welcomes as well. He sent them out with instructions to take no silver, no gold, no copper in your belts, no food, no bag for the journey, or 2 tunics or sandals or staff, for labourers deserve their food. They were to rely on the generosity of those they met on the way. I think as a society, we can find it quite hard to accept the hospitality and generosity of others. We can be uncomfortable receiving, feeling like we might be indebted to others. Perhaps not liking the feeling of vulnerability that comes with needing to accept something from someone else. Recognising that we're not totally self-sufficient and need others, and indeed need God, can be uncomfortable. Jesus' disciples had to rely on the welcome and generosity of others, and it is a good thing for us to do as well. Maybe even seeing it as a discipline of humility and vulnerability. And then how about how we welcome others? Some people are easy to welcome, aren't they? Particularly the ones like us, I find. It's easy to welcome the people I get on with, the people I enjoy, the people that make me feel good about myself. But what about those who are different to us? Those we don't actually like, those who challenge us, those who make us feel a bit uncomfortable. That's a bit harder. And whilst those words of Jesus about welcome are about receiving welcome ourselves, they are also a challenge to us about how we offer welcome. Jesus said that those who welcomed his followers are welcoming him, and that those who welcome him are welcoming the one who sent him. That's God. So that means when we offer someone a true welcome, we are not only welcoming them, but we are welcoming God. When we offer a cup of water to someone who is thirsty, it's as if we were offering that cup of water to God. You will never meet someone who is not made in God's image. The problem that we have is that we often make God in our image. We get it the wrong way round. When we only welcome those who are like us, we not only miss out on the wonderful diversity of God's creativity, but we also unintentionally, hopefully, maybe intentionally, reject those whom God has created and loves, and ultimately, in doing so, we reject God as well. Elsewhere, Jesus extends this idea by praising some for caring for him and criticising others for ignoring him. He tells a story to illustrate this, and those who he's praising for caring for him say, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" The response was, "Truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it for me." And it went the other way as well. So those who ignored the needs of others, we're told, were ignoring the needs of Jesus. Now, this should have an impact on how we treat others individually and collectively. As church, are we really welcoming? So many church websites say we are a welcoming church, everyone welcome. But actually, are we? Do we make it as easy as we can for people to join us? Do we welcome people as they are? Or do we expect them to quickly fit in and become like us, doing things our way? Do we welcome those who make us feel a bit uncomfortable and get in the way? For example, so often I get parents of small children come up to me apologising for their child or baby, for being just that, a child or baby. Little ones inevitably make a noise. Part of the welcome I always seek to give in our churches is that is okay, and that it doesn't bother me and it shouldn't bother anyone else there either. We are lucky where we are that we have lots of children in our churches. Some places aren't, they don't have children. But welcoming them recognises that children are children and there will inevitably be some noise, and that is okay, that's good, because the noise means that we have children worshipping with us. True welcome doesn't expect the one being welcomed to change to fit in, but instead to be included as they are. In his ministry, Jesus welcomed those that were excluded, those that were on the fringes of society. His welcome was radical, and ours should be too. Our acceptance and of the hospitality and welcome of others should also be radical. It's not easy, it isn't comfortable, it is challenging, but that's how God's kingdom is proclaimed. That's how people meet with God. When we treat them with dignity and welcome, when we treat them with the same dignity and welcome that we would offer when meeting God. Jesus received the welcome offered by humans when he himself became human. The initial welcome of Mary and then Joseph, and then many others, was an act on Jesus' part of great humility. And we see the same attitude of welcome offered to others. I think this is well summed up in the words of St. Paul from one of our readings the other week. It was while we were still sinners that Christ died for us. Not once we'd got everything sorted, not once Jesus had made sure that we were becoming more and more like him. But while we were still sinners, He offered us that welcome, not because it was easy or because we were going to fit in. Jesus offered us that welcome knowing that it would cost him everything. May we follow that pattern, seeing the likeness of God in all those we encounter, accepting the welcome we receive as a reflection of God's generosity, and welcoming others as if we were welcoming God. May that be the model in our churches and in our own lives too. Amen.